All right, welcome back on another installment on how to shoot better. The last conversation we had was about confirmation levels. I was on the range. I showed you some confirmation levels. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to do other topics that on the range. But this one, I think I can field here at home. The question was, should the confirmation levels also be associated with a specific type of trigger press? I don't think so. I think, as I always explain it in class, your grip is the constant, right? You want your grip to be the same no matter if you're dry fire, live firing, accurate shooting, fast shooting, all the time. Grip should be constant, should be the same the whole time. Then your eyes are going to start making decisions, right? They're going to see something, they're going to see the size of the target, distance of the target, complexity of the target. And that should inform you as to like what kind of confirmation level you think you need. And then, like I always say in class, your trigger manipulation should support the goal you're trying to achieve. I don't think that there's only one way to press the trigger. I think there's many ways to press the trigger. And as I even stated, I think it was on Tim Herron's post about trigger presses, you should be able to go from nothing to everything, right? And still maintain a certain level of accuracy, because you might be called to do that. All right, from nothing, like you're outside, and you go completely in and still get whatever accuracy is needed. From inside the trigger guard to everything, it's still quite a bit of travel. You should be able to get whatever you need, right? And then maybe from touching the trigger, and then maybe from prepping the trigger, and then from all the different distances. I call it travel in my classes. From all the different travel locations, right? Different amounts of travel, you will get a certain amount of movement of the gun. That you're essentially trying to mitigate through looking to a specific spot, right? Like gluing your eyes, your attention, your intent to that spot, and your grip should support that effort in whatever trigger manipulation you're doing. The gun is moving an acceptable amount, no more, no less, right? Obviously, the more prepped you are to that last wall where the gun is about to break, the less stupid can jump in there and move the gun, right? Like as the gun is breaking, because really that's the only split of a second where the gun needs to be exactly where it needs to be in order to get the accurate shot, right? So should the trigger manipulation be associated with confirmation level? I honestly don't think so. Maybe you can think of it that way on the draw, where like your finger is going to be outside the trigger guard until you come to full presentation, or as you're coming to full presentation, or after a reload, right? You do the reload, your finger's out, and then now if you're going to maybe a confirmation one, which is a low confirmation level with a flash of no sight, you might be able to get away with like from nothing to complete slamming, smashing the trigger, and still be very successful with what you're trying to do. But as I always describe in my trigger workshop, in my classes, then I talk about like once you've made that progress on the trigger, right? You've just pressed the trigger all the way to the rear. Why would we lose this progress, right? Where we can stay kind of connected to the shoe and continue shooting, regardless of the, again, difficulty of the target. Why would we lose that and add all this extra travel on every single shot? Anytime you're adding travel, you're for sure adding time, right? Because less travel is going to take less time. And you're for sure adding more opportunities for the gun to move some. And sometimes it's acceptable, it's no problem, but sometimes it's not acceptable. Why would we suffer that? Once we've made the progress, why not continue on that progress of staying connected to the shoe of your trigger and going back to that last wall as quickly as possible, and then letting your eyes dictate at which pace you can shoot based on confirmation levels. So no, I don't think that every trigger press or every confirmation level should be associated with a trigger press. For example, if I have a confirmation one target and from the draw or from the reload, I might be able to go from nothing to everything, nothing to everything, nothing to everything. That's wonderful. But I'm not going to do that every single time just because it's a confirmation one target, or even this much travel just because it's a confirmation. Yes, I am probably going to be okay smashing that trigger out to 10, 12, 15 yards depending on skill level, but that doesn't mean it's a smart thing to do, right? For me, in my opinion, you should learn to manipulate the trigger in all sorts of different ways. From nothing, from something, from more than something, from everything, right? Like all the way prepped to that very final wall. I know there's no more room at all because I am at that last wall. And all I have to do is add just a little bit of pressure to make the trigger break. Why would I not rush to that? Once I've made the progress on the trigger, I don't want to give it back, right? It's almost like giving back an advantage. So no, I don't think that they need to be associated. I guess you can think of associating that first shot from the reload, that first shot from the draw, maybe. But for me, like your trigger manipulation should support what your eyes are telling you need as far as accuracy, as far as precision, right? And possibly the speed at which you can achieve that that confirmation level, but it is not one-to-one. It's not like, well, if it's a confirmation 1, I smash. If it's a confirmation 2, I prep some. If it's a confirmation 3, then I have to go all the way to that last wall. In my opinion, once you started shooting, even in transition, so long as you're not moving, right? If you're not moving, you're not necessarily, I should say, if you're moving aggressively, you're probably not aiming, right? But if you're moving some, you're strolling around collecting points, we call that mounted movement, then yeah, you could stay connected to the shoe and continue shooting. There's no reason for us to add all that extra travel. And then the conversation comes, inevitably, well, what about trigger freeze? I think that's a training issue. If you're constantly getting trigger freeze, you probably have an unneeded, unnecessary amount of tension in your hand that's keeping your hand from your hand from letting your trigger finger move independently. Okay, so we got to work on that aspect, and I think it's good for you to get trigger freezes sometimes because you are indeed trying to be as aggressive as possible on that given target or given sets of targets or whatever. And so when you get trigger freeze, you're reminded that there's tension that you need to work out in training so that when you need to be able to move that trigger very, very, very fast and independently, you have that more times than not, right? That's the goal of training again. So if it's like you're going to avoid doing this thing because trigger freeze might happen, I mean, it's like I'm not going to go to the match because I might get a bad draw. I'm not going to not go to the match because I may get a bad draw. I need to work out the draw process so that I always get a draw, or the majority of the time I can get a good draw. I'm not going to miss the match because I miss transitions from time to time. Like, I have to work on transitions. I have to work on my trigger manipulations. It's just another skill that you would want to work. So let's not say I'm not going to stay connected to the shoe because I might get trigger freeze. Well, if you get trigger freeze and you get trigger freeze constantly, there's a training issue that needs to be worked out. And then you want to get to the point where like 90, 95, 99% of the time you don't get it. And now you're learning how to manipulate the trigger in a way that's like very, very fast, right? Because the less you travel, the less time it takes to break the next shot. And you're giving less of an opportunity for stupid, right? You might be stupid from time to time, just like me, moving the gun in the middle of the trigger press, right? If I'm traveling less, I am less likely to allow that. And if I am going to move it, because the travel is so little, it's going to be less of a problem in the target that I'm trying to hit. So again, trigger manipulations, yes, they're important. You should learn all the ways in which you can manipulate the trigger. Confirmation levels, yes, they're important, very important. Your eyes need to dictate the relationship between your sighting system and the target you're trying to shoot, what the size, the distance, the difficulty of the target is. And then based on that information, if the grip is constant and you have a good grip, then you can solve all sorts of different problems. So I hope that helps you. I am going to do a video here pretty soon at the range with, trigger manipulations and kind of how I look at different ways of manipulating the trigger and why I might do that. But in a nutshell, no, they're not connected. Constant on the trigger, constant on the grip, as good a grip you can get every single time. Eyes inform your shooting based on confirmation level, size of target, difficulty of the target, relationship between your sighting system and the target, right? And then your trigger should support that effort to get as accurate a shot as you can get or need to get, right? Based on what the information that your eyes are giving you. So yes, they all work together to get the result that you possibly want. I hope this is helpful. You know what to do. Get after it.